Welcome to Lesson 12 of the Alchemical Cabala, Children of the Voice Divine, Current of Zion, the Sword. So we've just emerged from the below side of the cube of space, ascending back to the above via the teacher key. One of the esoteric or secret names of the current and path of Zion is called Children of the Voice Divine. I will let you all ponder that as you will. Recalling the current we just emerged from, and as you work with this key and current this week, the key we are re-emerging into now, again, is the Lover's Key, shown on the screen here. It's the key of discernment. It's where we go to discern for ourselves our inner teaching that was given to us from the previous current of the teacher. Because we are spiritual beings and navigating the inner planes of reality, it is imperative that we learn to discern between what appears to be and what actually is, or simply what is and is not in our best interest. Just like we must learn to discern or learn discernment in the physical world, so too we must learn discernment of the myriad encounters of beings that we are bound to come across when we consciously set ourselves on the path of return along the inner planes of consciousness. How do we discern between what is a higher vibration or a lower vibration, being or entity, and what is in our best interest and what is not? First, we must recognize the need to learn discernment. And as in all things, we must always lean on self. A Course in Miracles states that in the most simple terms, that our basic choice of focus for our attention is either love or fear. Note where we find our attention placed. Is it on worry, fear, or trust and love? What is our experience? Just observe it, that is all. No condemnation. Just becoming aware of where we habitually place our attention is a huge step in the direction of becoming more awake and therefore more present as ourselves. Most of us are simply creatures of habit when it comes to where we place our attention. The Lover's Key itself points towards the answer by its very name, and where the subconscious is looking above to the sun and angel, shown here as Raphael, which means God has healed. This key was shown last time we navigated this path, side by side with the Deceiver Key, to help us discern between the perceived darkness and the light. So once again, we're forced to lean on ourself for discernment and our guidance here. Remember this simple definition for discernment. Our attention is our worship. I'm going to say that one more time. Where we place our attention is our worship. This puts a lot of responsibility on us as we simply must learn to control where our attention is focused. This is becoming responsible for ourselves as we should, as best as we are able, like all the time. Our attention is where our life force is moving, like the rays of the sun through a magnifying glass. The key is for us to use it ourselves for our own discernment. So not let worry and fear drive the bus, so to speak. Has anyone here ever started Googling medical symptoms and end up convincing themselves that their actual cold is something sinister? I think there's an actual term for that on the internet. But it just shows the, the tendency of the mind to navigate towards, worst possible outcomes. And, even that is rooted in actual love and care, because if we didn't care, we wouldn't try to protect and preserve the things that we love. So you choose where your thoughts are maintained, just like the driver of the chariot, which we will see in the next current on the cube of space. The more we learn to maintain our consciousness in and live in the present moment, this becomes a much easier task rather than cycling between the fears and anxieties of what might be in the future versus what seems to have already occurred in the past, versus what seems to already have occurred in the past. This is where most of us waste a lot of energy worrying about the possibilities of the future or wishing one could change the perceived past, that if it were somehow different, then we would be happy, have peace, or whatever it is that we desire. Our letting go of that grasping and seeking and of for something to fulfill our desire and being present to what is now, this is where our actual life power is. This is not new information. There's many movements that speak this very truth, and it's a great practice. So it's also worth noting that in the present is where all our inner help is as well. It's just too easy to give our life force and attention away to worry and fear. That's pretty much the way of the world. Take heart, the Master Jesus told us, let not your heart be troubled. And behold, I have overcome the world. Our little minds are so often like, yeah, but it's okay. Don't feel like the Lone Ranger if you have that response. We should always question what we receive, always. From anyone and everyone. By all means, question everything you receive. Verify it with your true self within, including all you receive from these lessons as well. Always. The point is to get you to the only reliable and consistent guidance that is always within you, in your heart of hearts, the voice of the divine. Hence, you operate more consciously from as you truly are, children of the divine voice. To be in that space, it is crucial to master some degree of concentration, the ability to keep our mind in one place. And seen in the key here of the lovers, be like the self-conscious mind, focused on your inner Eve, your inner subconscious, and have your inner subconscious focused on the angel, the divine within you, the sun within you. Make that a habitual practice and pattern, and you will accelerate your faculties of discernment. Now, all that said, there are almost countless types of organisms in the sea, and there are even more things in the inner worlds. I'm fond of this quote. It's something I kind of made a modification on a Shakespeare famous quote. And I just simply say there are more things in heaven and earth than contained in any of our philosophies. So to that end, and in service to assist us in developing our discernment, please make sure everyone's muted yourself if you haven't. Number one, if you have not memorized the pattern on the trestle board, please make that a priority and work with it. 2, please familiarize and memorize the simple tree of life. The first rule of thumb on the tree, the higher up on the tree of life, the closer to the unity of being, and you will experience higher vibratory beings there. That's a rule of thumb. And likewise, on the lower end of the spectrum, towards the bottom of the tree, like the astral plane, is where you're most likely to experience lower vibratory entities or beings. And it's there that you might encounter things possibly not in your best interest. So here are a few guidelines that are useful to dispelling unwanted encounters with beings that might not have your best interest at heart. No matter what form of spirit appears to you, command that they stand in the light of Christ. No spirit of ill intent or not of Christ is capable of standing in the real light of Christ. Even if you think you're seeing angels of light or Jesus himself, command them to stand in the light of Christ. Beings of Christ will oblige you and know your intentions are good. Spirits of lower vibrations will simply not stay. This teaching is also given in the Bible in 1 John 4, where we are advised, beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. Remember, he who is within you is greater than he who is in the world. Most all of us have these experiences that may bring us fear or concern. Most of the time, these occur in the lower astral planes on the tree of life. As beings of real love and light are vibrating at a much higher vibratory level on the tree. So, as a simple example, note in your own body, since you're a microcosm, note where you feel the fear response in your body. Where is it most commonly? It's virtually always in the lower regions of the body. There's nothing wrong with this. It's just as it is. As above, so below. Discernment on the inner planes is just like discerning human beings. Not everyone is as they show themselves to be in the world. And their intentions vary just as much. And just because a person goes through transition doesn't mean they have somehow become more virtuous or well-meaning or even more knowledgeable. It simply means they no longer have a physical vehicle to operate within. That's more or less the simple difference. This is why it is stressed to do your spiritual work while you are incarnated in the flesh, as it's the best time to do your spiritual work. The heaviness of matter and inertia are like weights that allow us to gain strength in our own spiritual work and the parameters that we know as space and time of the third dimension. It's very important to understand these things once you start to navigate the inner tree of life, as the astral plane is the first plane within or above that we encounter as we progress inwardly towards the inner sun, the Christ center of our being. I'm repeating, memorize the simple tree, because you need to internalize the map of consciousness so that it's yours. If you take appearances at face value, it's far too easy to be deceived when you might find yourself awake in the astral planes, as beings can appear almost any way they wish and say almost anything. So we recall the first stage of spiritual unfoldment in tarot shows as the deceiver key. That key pushes us to learn discernment. To see through appearances is our first task to learn discernment. This takes effort. It takes persistent questioning of what is and leaning on the self, our holy guardian angel or Christ within, to show us what is what. Ask yourself, ask your holy guardian angel to guide you. That's its job. It's more than happy and only always willing to do this. Now, I will say in this regard, make that a priority for yourself and be patient with yourself in this regard. This isn't called the great work for nothing. Okay? Be patient with yourself. You know, this is one of the imports of churches advising people to welcome and invite Christ into our hearts, particularly the Master Jesus Christ, who did incarnate in the flesh, who is the Lord of the earth, the Redeemer of humanity, and my personal Lord and Savior. Listen to your heart and your gut. That said, I have tremendous respect for most all faiths and many, many spiritual paths that the world has, as the world continues to have many, many great teachers of many different disciplines and paths. Remember this, the Western tree of life that we are studying is an amalgamation of many, many streams of the mysteries over long periods of time, consolidated into one system of symbolic algorithms that connect you to those intelligences and paths within you, wherein you may navigate the inner planes of the all within yourself. So one of the great teachers of this path in the past 100 years, Mr. Jason Lauderhan, he worked with the tarot for over 50 years, and he was very down to earth, very pragmatic, and very wise. A question was posed to him by one of his students, and the question was this. He said, "How can I protect myself from black magic?" This was his response. The head of the tree of life is goodwill. That's the greatest protection you can have. that bears repeating. The head of the tree of life is goodwill. That's the greatest protection you can have. He goes on to say that it is impersonal and has no object. This includes harmlessness to all. The truth has always come through goodness. All great teachers have been people of goodwill. Now, I love this response because instead of just dismissing this question and saying, don't worry about black magic, evil's not real, this isn't, which sometimes is a prudent response. And it's very understandable why some people will just dismiss outright a question of that nature. But Mr. Lauderhan, being very wise, addresses it in the way he does because while he knows that ultimately evil is not real in the sense that it's not eternal, evil is relative, or as he likes to say in some cases, your relatives. That's a good line. But seriously, while not eternally real, it is a very real force in the world of perceived duality that we most often experience in the lower planes of the tree. And as such, we must learn to effectively deal with these forces. It's no different than knowing how to safely navigate a shady or questionable part of a large city that you might find yourself in. This is why it's often advised to visualize yourself in white light. You can also state the first truth about the self on the pattern on the trestle board. I am a center of expression for the primal will to good, which eternally creates and sustains the universe. That statement uses your word to place you right at your crown of being and goodwill. Use it. In addition to commanding spirits to stand in the light of Christ, you can always visualize columns of white light and a canopy of white light over your residence. This is very real on the inner planes, because that is where you are constructing this in your imagination. Remember, the universe is mental, all is mind. And the levels of the imagination in the lower astral are the same levels you're likely to encounter different beings on the inner planes. Now, understand, when you start increasing light within yourself and the inner planes, it gets the attention of all the inhabitants that are present in those planes. It's kind of like the 4th of July on those levels. It's like, hey, what's going on? You know, this is one reason people often experience their own shadow aspects when they begin to take on more light. It takes real discernment to know if you are dealing with an aspect of your own shadow, which is just a part of yourself that you don't like to admit that you have, or have decided to suppress for any number of reasons. In the Western tradition, this is sometimes termed the dweller on the threshold. And this is a pretty much universal experience for people on the spiritual path. And it's not always fun dealing with our shadows, but it requires discernment and persistence. So it takes discernment to know if we're dealing with our own shadow or another entity of another realm. Either way, we must learn discernment. We're not going to go very deeply into this. As I mentioned earlier, recall our attention is our worship. So we don't worship fear, but we also don't ignore potential threats while you're on the journey of life incarnate or the journey of life return. We take a responsible middle path approach. You know, you look both ways before crossing a street, and you really look a third time just to be certain. So we're going to give you some effective tools to help you proceed along the path. As we said, Mr. Lauderhand first pointed to the crown of the tree as our best protection. So we are going to learn and receive this formula for ourselves. You can always use this in your meditations to help you stay centered and protected by the divine self. So let's look at and collectively read the word Keter, the crown in Hebrew, the sphere of the divine self on the tree of life as it's spelled out in the book of wisdom. Please, whoever wishes to, unmute yourself one at a time and state what you observe here. This is Kaf, this is the letter Tav, and this is the letter Resh. And this spells Kether, the crown. You might want to jot this down for yourself and put these keys out at some time in your own studies so you can keep it for yourself, because this is one to really, really integrate for yourself. We have the Wheel of Fortune and the world and the sun. Yep.
I'm just looking at it cursory, sort of just at first glance. I looked at the numbers, and I add the numbers. You've got 21 and 19, so those together are 40, and then you have 50.
That's right, 50.
Yes, and 5 is the number of man, so God manifesting through mankind.
Right. Beautiful. Yeah. Y'all understand what she's saying there? The number 50, we read the numbers right to left like we do Hebrew. So it's the power of 0, which is the superconscious full operating through the number 5, the number of man, right? The star, which is also the teacher key.
Yes, I was gonna, yeah. So that was just the first thing I do.
Excellent.
I do the math.
That's a good way to start.
Bookkeeper, what can I say?
That's a good way to start. We know that the Wheel of Fortune is the western face of the cube of space, right? It's the one that we don't want to be, it's the one that Margot jokes about us getting off of, right? I mean, it's a half joke and a half truth, right? I mean, what I think, I don't want to speak for you, Margot, but I think what she's really saying is we don't want to be bound to this side of the cube, right? We want to have a choice. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. You need to be able to explore.
Yes, right.
The whole cube. And you come out, and the west face, you can start out as all you see is all there is. So
Right.
you're talking about discernment, that ties right in.
Yes.
You can't do that. You have to have discernment. You have to go within, make the contact.
Yep.
And so you can decide whether you want to, when you get to the fork in the road, whether you go left or right.
Yeah. This key, Wheel of Fortune, is what they call in the East, the wheel of samsara, right? It's the cycle of birth and rebirth that people get stuck in when they believe all they see is all that is. And
yeah, ties in so well.
yes. Now we're go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't know if this is how to do it, but
there are no wrong answers.
Mastery of the world, this world leads to enlightenment. I mean, that's very basic. I don't know if that's
perfect.
really
well.
Cool.
I think that's a pretty good definition of people that we would consider enlightened, right?
Yeah.
The master said, behold, I have overcome the world.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in the Christ. He is the Christ.
Sun.
Christ light, yeah.
The sun. And the center, the world, is the dance of life.
Yes.
Totally relaxed.
Right.
Poised, balanced.
Yes. I like here on the Wheel of Fortune how you see the bull. The bull is the symbol of earth, okay? And the four elements, right? Taurus, these are the fixed signs of the zodiac. And here it's facing back, and it just keeps cycling over and over and over, right? Like life is coming into incarnation and slowly evolving and coming back. Here in the world, the dancer has ascended, right? They've integrated their polarities, and they have the rods of involution and evolution within their grasps. And the bull now is looking this way, not that way. So he's looking over here towards the sun key. So that's kind of cool.
It looks like the Kundalini and the world key that he's holding too. The life force.
Yes. Yes.
Looks like,
yeah, going up and going down. The spiral.
Reminds me of the DNA spirals.
Yes.
If anyone doesn't know, this is Leo, fire. The eagle here is actually Scorpio and water. The face of the man here is Aquarius, air, and the bull is Taurus, the earth. These are the what do they call them? The three elements, right? The blue, yellow, and red, the basics, right? And we see the creature, the Anubis here in red, which is active. He's coming up on the wheel, so he's being evolved. This is where humanity is at present, evolving. And this is the divine self. Now, what is the divine self holding in this key?
A sword of discernment.
Wow. So that's cool, right? Now let's take it even further. Were people here for the class where we talked about how we back into the tree and have the Sephiroth lay into our auras and where they fall on the body? Does anyone remember that? So where is the sword placed in terms of the Sephiroth on the Sphinx? I want you to start thinking this way, because nothing is perchance in the Book of Wisdom. So our left shoulder is the sphere of mercy. It's the blue sphere. Because we back into the tree. Remember?
Exactly. Yeah. Forgot about
So,
this backing into
the
this.
self here is shown holding the sword at the heart center,
Yes.
Tiferet, and going towards the sphere of mercy. This is why it's so imperative for you to learn the simple tree, the colors, and the statement of the self, because then you will see these things that would not otherwise occur to you.
Mercy.
Yeah, we have to remember to back into the tree.
That's right. We back into the tree. It's almost as if we emerge from it, right? That's like
Right.
when we come into the world, we walk through the door that is the tree, right? And when we come back, we just merge back into it. I think Michael in some of his classes, to simplify his meditations, he talks about leaning back into the spine, the central column of light in our vessels. Yeah, it's the same with the tree. Does anyone have any? Yeah.
Is the mercy, the memory, the benevolence, is that like
Yes,
the, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thanks.
that is correct.
I put mine next to each other. On this-
Yes, excellent.
That makes it
excellent.
easier. Yeah.
That's the way to do it right there.
I just folded the paper and made them next to each other.
So what I want to impress upon you is make note of this little formula, because it will serve you well in connecting to the crown of the tree of life within you. And
I just
it's do what?
I just wanted to mention how happy they are in the Sun Key, and it's just like life is beautiful, and love, lights, life.
Yes.
All that is just
right.
That's where we want to be.
That's right. This is the heart of hearts. This is the regenerated self and humanity, right? And this is where Christ says to enter the kingdom, we must become again as little children. So this is the self-conscious and subconscious holding hands, right? And looking at the yod, which is the divine spark, the unity. And here is our divine self as the sun.
And you have all those yods, those are all the astrological, there's 12, right? Is that 2, 4, 6, 7?
There's actually 13.
Oh, there's 13.
And 13 is the sun and the 12 astrological signs. It's also the number that of a shad in Hebrew, which means unity and love.
Yeah. 3 manifesting through 1.
Yes. So
The law,
here,
law in action.
If anyone wants to say anything else before we move forward, oh yeah, I need to get moving. So in essence and simplicity, a most simple reading of this formula, and please pay attention to this. Kaf, the letter Kaf, means grasping hand. This letter. The letter in the middle, Tav, means cross. And the letter Resh means face, and it's a sun. So, in the Book of Wisdom, the word for crown spelled out shows that we see the hand grasping the cross of the sun. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
This is a most simple reading, but profoundly effective. So keep that for your future meditations. If you ever need to connect with the crown of the divine self, use this as a tool and formula to assist you. All right. I think we covered a lot of that. One last little observation. It's interesting to note that the circle here is what things are, the creatures are going on the outside of it and around. Then we have the androgynous unified self, our inner male and female within the circle, or the wreaths of victory, which these are all the leaves of the trees of life. And then at the end, with the sun, we see the children dancing within the circle. The word
Sorry,
do what?
22B.
Gabby has had her hand raised a while.
I'm sorry, sweetie. I can't see anything except the screen. What do you need? Just unmute yourself.
Hi, Dad. Sorry. So just to touch on something that was said earlier, I really believe that mastery of anything is an illusion. And, to me, the only way to enlightenment is through service.
I think Jesus would agree with you, honey.
That's,
as far as the service part. Do what?
That's just my take on, kind of the interpretation of what everyone's been talking about. But I think, like, to me, the idea that you really can truly master something, at least in this life on this plane, is just an illusion.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right, in the Sun Key, we see the children dancing within the circle. I don't know if people know this, but the actual meaning of Catholic means universal. That's the actual meaning of the term. And it comes from an older term that means to come into the circle. The children are under the protection of Sol Invictus, the invincible sun, which is the real you in your heart of hearts. So this is a beautiful key to show you your real self. And in the Book of Tokens, this key, notice there's no shadows in this key. It's just like the sun at the solstice, there where the sun stands still. There's literally zero shadows. This is the full, whole self, the victorious, the invincible self. All right. One last bit of information to utilize is to call on your holy guardian angel to protect you. As mentioned before, this is Michael, seen in key 14 of the tarot, which we will get to. That's his job, to protect you on your path, which is why we see Temperance and Michael on the middle path, on the middle column of the tree of life. So make time to consciously connect with your holy guardian angel. Persist until you receive. Persistence alone is omnipotent. So although in truth there is only one life power present in all things, for creation to occur to us as it appears in space and time, the appearance of light and shadow are necessary so that the indivisible one may appear in its endless forms through creation. The wise know there is only one in essence, but they also know to discern the spirits. The master told us to be gentle as a dove and wise as a serpent. I hope these instructions will be of use to you on your path. The spiritual path is not for the faint of heart, and it is not always easy. And as said before, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. So take heart, trust in the divine self, our creator, our holy guardian angel, and the Master Jesus to see through us. So once again, I'm going to quickly show the word Zion as spelled out in the Book of Wisdom. And here it is. It's Zion, Yod, noon. There's someone trying to get in. I can't tell. Let's see here. Okay, here we see the subconscious is receiving from the sun. The hermit is standing as one, holding the light high. And at the end of this, we have discerned through all appearances to the innermost structure of appearances, the skeleton, the core of the human vessel in its physical form. I don't know if everyone knows, but if not, it's interesting to note that your blood is produced within the skeleton. As we know, the symbol of the skeleton is white. And in this key, he leaves just one white rose. We see it twice in tarot, in this key, transition, and in the Fool. So did the Fool pick the rose from this garden, or did they plant it there? Or both? And more importantly, ask yourself, where and what is the white rose within you? To answer that, simply ask the self to show you while you visualize the white rose. Another quote from the Bible on discernment, 2 Timothy 1-7. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So in the cube of space, we know that Zion connects the east to the above. The east is the illuminating intelligence of the Empress, and the above is the self-conscious mind. This week, we will have almost completed navigating the 12 edges of the cube of space, the 12 signs of the zodiac. We have been through 10, which is a pretty good number, and 2 remain, which we will get to and later see how they will lead us into the cube and the tree of life itself. From Jewels of the Wise on page 95, it states, on either side of the river, the tree of life with its 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit each month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. There shall no more be anything accursed, but the throne of God and the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall worship him. Revelations 22:2-3. Remember, your attention is your worship. Take care where you place your attention, and more importantly, where you keep it. Also remember, in regards to the whole picture, a real sense of humor is an absolute necessity on the spiritual path. Always make time for joy and comedy. There's a good reason every king and queen kept a court jester. Remember, we are all the fool in the journey of life. Make time for what brings your heart real joy. Okay. And lastly, to ground this home in Kabbalah, what you see here is known as the path of the flaming sword. It shows the divine self in Kether, descending and emanating completely from the beginning to the end through all 10 Sephirah, The one descends into all its manifestation, illuminating all of its vessels in all the worlds. This is you, child of the voice divine. This is the sword of Zion. May the light and grace of our Lord Christ Jesus, the great Christos, and your holy guardian angel be extended to you, guide you, and protect you in all your paths and all your ways. This concludes Lesson 12 of the Alchemical Cabala, Children of the Divine Voice. In the current of Zion, the sword on the cube of space. Floor is now open for any questions or comments.